Just want to talk about some kind of a bigger picture issue here that's kind of affecting some of the news wires and also in some like CNBC. We saw it on today's TVs above our heads here this morning quite a bit. Here's a just simple sample of a search I did on one of the news wires for food. Food cost rise, tame food prices. We got down here rising food prices, all kinds of exciting stuff on food prices. Just want to kind of bring things back down to earth so we can kind of understand really what this food issue is about and whether it is a U.S. problem or a other problem here, meaning other countries. Here's actually a chart showing food CPI. So the food portion of the Consumer Price Index, retail food prices. I want to point out, at least for the U.S., this is extremely low still at 1.5% higher growth. This is for the month of December's latest number here. So as far as U.S., we do not have food inflation in the U.S. It is currently 1.5%. I just want to also point out, we have had periods in the past, obviously as you can see in the 70s, we have had higher prices in order to affect grain prices, or I should say in order for grain prices to affect it, you really need something around a 5% increase before it starts to be correlated with grain prices very well. And this is kind of a hard concept for us to think in our heads because we see right now corn prices are up 77% over last year, big increases for wheat. I want to kind of detail why we don't have a big, a 77% increase for food CPI here. Here's an example why. Just use a little cornflake scenario here. Box of cornflakes. And in this example, I just made up these numbers. 22-ounce box of cornflakes. And let's say it cost $3.69 last year. The amount of corn in that box of cornflakes, it cost $3.69 with a grand total of 9 cents. So I want to point out, first of all, the amount of base commodity price that's in the food items we eat each day is actually extremely low. This is probably a little exaggerated here. Cereal is certainly probably one of the lowest portions of actual commodity price in the exact price. More items have certainly a larger percentage here. But I wanted to point out, 9 cents of a box of cereal last year was composed of corn. Even with a 77% increase in corn, that now brings your total cost to 16 cents per box of cereal. I'm sorry, John?
9 to 16 is about 77%.
Yes, that's exactly right. From 9 to 16, so a 77% increase in corn. That gives you a total cost for your box of cereal of now $3.76. That's a 2% increase versus last year. So even though corn prices are up 77% right now, the only increase for that box of cereal is 2. That's why we do not have dramatic price inflation here, and certainly in the U.S. And though, like I said, this is a little exaggerated example, there are ones which have a little more of a correlation here. But I just want to point out something, kind of keep us kind of realistic on this food price inflation fiasco. The other reason why I also bring up this issue is I don't talk bad about reporters here very much at all, but I just want to let you guys know that I was told last week that by one of the reporters that his editor is now asking them to also include in the stories. In other words, when he calls analysts like ourselves, not only talk about the markets, but he also now is being told that they must have a consumer impact type of message involved with the story. In other words, what the editor is looking at, and as he's reading other media reports and watching the news and things like that, is he's seeing hype about world food inflation. And he's trying to bring his reporters here in the U.S. into that exact same story, I'm not trying to say they're trying to influence and hype, but they are trying to bring this down to a consumer level now and join the world food inflation surges. So I'm not trying to say that they're trying to manipulate things, but I want to let you guys know that as far as the general media, there is an effort right now in order to focus on world food inflation as a bullish, exciting thing here. So kind of keep that in our heads here as we kind of read these stories coming out throughout the next few months. As far as a longer-term picture, here's an example for corn. I did adjust these numbers a little bit from the conference. I'm not going to change the main message here. For ending stocks, we're using increase. USD hit 745 for old crop. We're just right here, very close to it. And we're at 925 for new crop. In other words, as we talked about at the conference, If we don't get a dramatic 3.3 million acre increase and also hit this 162 yield, things are pretty darn tight. Even if we get those numbers, if we don't get those increases, we're going to certainly be in a big load of trouble here for the new crop. So that's one thing I want to point out here. As far as short term, we've got no problem with this market taking a little break here and there. As Brian mentioned earlier, we have crude oil kind of flipping right now. In addition, Argentina weather has changed for the short term. In fact, we are getting rains about every 4 or 5 days now in Argentina. Is something to point out here too, and that could certainly limit some of the excitement here for some of the products like soybeans here. As far as soybeans, same things from the conference here. We're going from 140 old crop. We're almost adding 77 million bushels to that. So certainly, as Bill mentioned during the conference here, beans are a little different than corn right now. Corn is the exciting tight stock story. Beans are along for the ride, and we're certainly getting some excitement from the acreage idea, trying to hold on to some acres at least. So I just want to point out, as far as that goes, near-term news is getting a little weak, but certainly for beans, the longer-term picture is not as exciting for corn. Certainly backs up what Bill is mentioning at the conference. And same thing, wheat kind of joins corn along the idea of stocks are tightening a little bit here. 818 is what USDA told us for old crop. We're actually dropping a little bit for new crop. Even though we have higher acres, keep in mind last year's yield. You see this number way up here, 46.4. It's a big, big yield here. And it might be a little hard to get, especially if we have these problems with this winter wheat crop. And we certainly go back to what Drew mentioned here as far as spring rains for the wheat. So winter wheat is still a big question for us right now. But that's all I wanted to wrap up with the grain. Just a kind of a bigger picture message. Corn and wheat are still the exciting markets. Beans are getting kind of let up right now and drag up a little bit here. As far as things going on the website, we will have price outlooks on here later on today. Those will be updated here soon.